Here back again, my brothers and sisters. Going to continue on reading some history of Apostle Paul. Amen. Amen, my brothers and sisters. So without further ado, the last one we just read come out of Acts chapter 8. I read verses 3. Read verses 1 through 4. Amen. And we discovered over there how Apostle Paul, amen, it says here, and Saul was consenting unto his death. And at that time, there was a great persecution. Amen. At that time, there was a great persecution against the church. And they were all scattered abroad throughout the region of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Amen. And they were spread throughout the region of Jerusalem and Samaria and Judea, Samaria, amen, and Jerusalem, except the apostles, amen. Because Saul, during the time his name was Saul, he was going around anyone who was following after Christ. He threw them in prison, men and women. Not just men, but men and women. All those who were following Christ. But that did not stop the word from going out. That did not stop them from sharing the word, because it also says in verse 4 of how they were scattered abroad everywhere, preaching the word. Amen. And this started after, this stemmed from Stephen. This was after they took Stephen to his burial. Amen. Amen. Because it said right here in verse 2, and the devout man carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentations over him. Amen. Made great lamentations over him. Amen. They buried him good. Amen. They dressed him up real good. Amen. I know they did the normal burial ritual, what they was doing back then to Stephen. And verse 3 says, and for Saul, he made havoc, amen, of the church. Entering into every house. He was going into every house. Not only in the streets, but he was even going in their house. Amen. Going in their house. Amen. Men and women. And committed them to prison. Going in their house, taking them to prison. He was committed. He was committed to imprisoning Christians, the followers of Christ. Amen. But we're going to read what happened to Saul here in chapter 9. Amen. So let's go to chapter 9 now. Amen. And I have written here in my tablet verses 1 through 10. Amen. But we're going to read all the way to verse verse 19. Amen. Amen, my brothers and sisters. This probably going to cover this for right now. And I will be back because I have some more readings that I want to share with you all. A few more passages of scriptures that pertain to Apostle Paul. I'm going to come back later on if this platform act right and share the rest of what I have written here, what I pulled out of the commentary, along with a little bit, not much. I'm just going to do a little bit of regeneration, because we have been doing it on 2 or 3 Saturdays. But on tomorrow, if God allow us to see tomorrow, after I come out of the house of prayer, we will touch bases on regeneration. Amen? Amen, my brother and sister. But for right now, let's go ahead and share Acts chapter 9. Let's see what's going to happen to Saul now. Amen? And it reads, Acts chapter 9, starting with verse 1. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, amen, went unto the high priest, and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, amen, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. Amen. Might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. Amen. Pretty much it's like a bounty hunter. A bounty hunter going out to catch someone that has escaped, or someone that they have been looking for. Amen. And they send a bounty hunter out to get them. More than likely, it be the ones that maybe skip town or skip the state or skip the country, whatever. And they send a bounty hunter out to search for them. And that's what Apostle Paul is and in the same sense that what bounty hunters get. They get a paper, they get a letter, amen, giving them authorizations to go to wherever they have to go to retrieve their prisoner, amen. And Apostle Paul here, which is Saul now, had went to the chief priest, amen, asking them of a letter to go to Damascus and bring back anyone that was preaching the gospel, amen. Any of those followers of Christ, men or women, bound them, amen, and bring them back to Jerusalem. Amen. Verse 2. And disregard of him letters to Damascus. Amen. And desired of him letters to Damascus. I'm reading the same verse over again. If he found any of this way, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. Verse 3. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. Amen. In verse 4. And he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? I will be right back on one more video to share the rest of this reading. We're going to try to cover to verse 19 coming out of Acts chapter 9. Amen. Be right back.